director of the NOAA Fisheries Northeast Fisheries Science Center, and we're here at our Woods Hole Laboratory. And I want to thank Secretary Raimondo for coming, and Senator Markey, and Representative Keating, and Dylan Fernandez, and Susan Moran. We very much appreciate the emphasis on your support for science in the Woods Hole community, and from a NOAA perspective, for your support for NOAA's mission. It's important to all of us, and I cannot even explain how many people will hear about this visit and understand what your visit means to all of us who conduct science and who work in Woods Hole Village. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Senator Markey, and we will continue with our event. Thanks, Senator Markey. Thank you very much.
And thank you for, John, thank you for the incredible tour which we have received today, and to everyone who is here for the fabulous job you do every single day in serving our country and serving the planet. So we thank you so much, and it's an honor to welcome Secretary of Commerce Gina Raimondo to Woods Hole for a community on the front lines of climate change. There's no one better to be on the front lines for President Biden working on these issues. We are the Bay State, but the governor comes from the Ocean State, and so we are partners and have always been working on all of these issues. She is a leader on the biggest stage, and we know that the Northeast will always be proud of her and glad to welcome her back home. And it's great to be joined by my partner in the Massachusetts delegation, Bill Keating. Thank you for all of your great work, and as John said, Senator Sue Moran and Dylan Fernandez, a great state representative from this area. We thank you so much for all the work that you do on an ongoing basis. To John Hare, to you, Peter, where have you gone? Are you still here? Oh, Peter, thank you here. Peter, thank you. Rick Murray, to Rob from the USGS, and to all of the other countless workers who are here on a daily basis working to keep this as the #1 research institution in the world. It's a one-of-a-kind wonder, vibrant coastlines, best-in-class researchers and facilities, and a unique ecological vantage point where we can study our planet and our impact on it. Because without Woods Hole, we would be adrift, miles off the pace of where we need to be in understanding our planet's climate crisis, as well as what this crisis means for our oceans, fisheries, and everyone who depends upon it. 70% of the world's surface is ocean, it's water, and we have to understand it and the impact which the climate is having upon it. The climate crisis is the greatest national security, health, moral, and economic crisis of our time. And now, more than ever, we need our researchers to understand what this means for our communities, our fishermen, and for our world. And as the seas continue to rise, Woods Hole remains our scientific safe harbor, keeping us anchored in science and keeping our fishing industry strong. There is no other place in the world like Woods Hole, which is why I invited Secretary Raimondo to tour it with all of you after her confirmation to become our Secretary of Commerce, and to ensure we keep these facilities and work right here where it belongs. The loss of any of these facilities would mean the loss of not just years, but decades, and ultimately more than a century of collaboration at the crux of industry and science. With upcoming investments in infrastructure breakthroughs, Woods Hole will expand upon its roots and bring together scientific leaders from the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute, the Marine Biological Laboratory, the Woodwell Climate Research Center, and all of the other resources that are here, from NOAA to the U.S. Geological Service. Location matters. It breeds discovery. It builds cooperation. It saves money. To borrow a word from our biologist, we have a beautiful symbiotic relationship between the Northeast Fisheries Science Center and the rest of the Woods Hole scientific community. We can and we should continue to invest in this facility, this program, and these collaborations. And because location matters, we should also continue having discussions about future NOAA fisheries collaborations with the Port of New Bedford, which was just named the highest grossing port for the 20th consecutive year. We can invest in our science centers, and we can invest in our on-the-ground relationship with fishermen and the seafood industry. For centuries, the sea was thought to be unfathomable in its depths and complexities. But for more than 150 years, scientists at the Northeast Fisheries Science Center and in our Woods Hole institutions have been uncovering its secrets. And now, they're doing the same with our previously unfathomable challenge of climate change. To know Woods Hole is to know that cutting-edge research and science can keep our fisheries and our planet healthy, so that our communities can stay healthy for generations to come. To know Woods Hole is to know the dedicated people here. More than 200 people with critical jobs are thriving in this mission-driven place, with thousands of others who are all part of this larger community. To know Woods Hole is to know that when we collaborate and invest in discovery, we reap rewards far greater than if we go blindly alone. The Green New Deal laid out our map for how to fight the climate crisis with equity and science at its core, the stars we need to navigate by. But we cannot manage what we don't measure. We cannot undertake what we do not understand. With the facilities here in Woods Hole, with their guidance and with the great leadership of Secretary Raimondo, we can manage this crisis and undertake a transformation to a secure, safe, and healthy future for all of us, both on land and at sea. Now I would like to introduce our great Secretary of Commerce, Gina.
Thank you, Senator Markey. It is fantastic for me to be here with you and your lovely wife. It was wonderful to meet you. And Congressman Keating, great pleasure to meet you, and I look forward to working with you. It is true I serve the whole country, but I do have a special place in my heart for New England, which is, great to be able to work with both of you. And to my NOAA team, it's fantastic to meet you. It's been great. I've been very lucky that NOAA is in the Commerce portfolio, and I have long admired the work that NOAA does. Having been the governor of the Ocean State, and of course URI collaborates with NOAA, I'm no stranger to the quality of work and science that happens at NOAA, but now that I'm, part of the team, it's really been wonderful for me to meet you in person and to be able to express my gratitude to each and every one of you, so thank you. I want to begin by thanking my friend Senator Markey for inviting me here today. And I also want you to know how lucky you are that he is your senator, because from the second I spoke to him, right after the president had nominated me, but before I was confirmed, and then get all through the confirmation process, he constantly reiterated to me just how important Woods Hole is. And that's fantastic, because you need somebody in Washington who really cares about the community. And that's what you have in Senator Markey. So we all know about how, his leadership in climate change. And we all know that you're a leader in that area and a leader in the Green New Deal, but he hasn't forgotten where he's from. And I just thought it was important that everybody know how much of an advocate he is for Woods Hole, for Falmouth, and for this whole community. So, and at that first thing he said was, "Do you promise you'll come and visit?" Yes. First, I said, "Yes, I will," and so here I am. But anyway, I also would like to say President Biden is deeply committed to the work that is happening here. He is deeply committed to rising to meet the challenges of climate change, deeply committed to science, deeply committed to putting science back in the center of our fight against climate change, and deeply committed to supporting NOAA and the science that happens at NOAA. In fact, his budget that he just put out has substantial increases in funding for NOAA, and I'm sure that the two gentlemen to my left will make sure that that budget gets through the Congress and NOAA gets the money that it deserves. But in all seriousness, it's good for me to have a boss, and I think good for the nation to have a president who prioritizes science, respects science, values the ocean, and is ready to be bold as it relates to climate change. And that includes all things ocean. It includes understanding the power of the ocean to capture carbon. It includes understanding how we move forward with offshore wind and do it in a way that respects the ocean and the fish and undersea life. And so I did feel it was important to mention that. Being here today was amazing. You know, it's one thing to know about Woods Hole, it's another thing to see it. To see the science and the research and the collaboration and the innovation that puts 1,000 people to work every day. That is a one-of-its-kind operation in all of America. That is the cutting edge of undersea research. And to see the collaboration between the Navy, Woods Hole, NOAA, academics come together here in a very special way. So I want to thank you all. You all did an outstanding job, I felt. I mean, we learned so much today, and I feel better for it. We also heard how important it is to have a working port and a working dock, and to see that in action. And I want you to know that we will continue to support that, because that's necessary. And we noticed some of the facilities are a little tired, so we're going to do our best to see if we can get the resources necessary to improve those as well. Today I'm announcing that the Commerce Department's EDA, Economic Development Administration, awarded a $470,000 grant to the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution to develop a waterfront research infrastructure resiliency plan. We heard about that on our first stop today, and I'm thrilled to be able to say that the EDA and Commerce is investing $500,000 into that to keep the world-renowned research, exploration, and education institution operational in the event of future storms. And I will say that I hope this is the first of more to come. EDA's mission is to support locally focused, locally driven strategies that are designed to develop communities and create jobs and prepare for and recover from natural disasters. And so this is just one example of that happening. Obviously, we all know of the damage done in the dock due to the storms, and so this is a way for us to contribute to the resurgence. So I would say this is my first time to Woods Hole. It will not be my last if you have me back. And for the folks here at NOAA, I want you to know I'm excited to work with you. You have my full support for what you're doing. By the way, I want to give you special recognition for the diversity and inclusion work that you're doing and that you talked about today. It's necessary, it's needed, and we have to continue doing that. And I'll just say, I'll end where I began, which is I feel, Senator Markey, I told you this from the beginning, but I've long admired you, your public service, and also your commitment to climate, and it's just an honor for me to be able to work closely with you.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's our honor to have you here. She's brilliant. She understands the environment. She understands the economy. She's run a state, and she's one of us. So we can't really ask for more than that. It's just a bonus. It's just a bonus. It's just a bonus that she's also a Rhodes Scholar. You know, so that helps to give us the confidence that she understands all of these issues. And again, Elizabeth Warren and I, we partner with her on a daily basis over in the Senate. Bruno Freitas is here representing her today. We thank you for being here. Nico Mendoza, State Director, and Hannah Benson, all here representing our great Senator Warren in this effort to make sure that the partnership that we have to have with this Biden administration just is tied stronger and stronger together on an ongoing basis. And towards that end, my great partner in the House of Representatives, Bill Keating, he and I have been friends for many, many years, but he just does a fabulous job as the congressman representing Woods Hole every single day in the United States Congress. So welcome, my great friend.
Thank you, Senator Markey, Secretary Raimondo. It's so great to have you here. We'll take you up on your offer to come again. We appreciate that. Yeah, it's great to be here with you, with Senator Warren, our partners, high-level staff that's here. Thank you, and thank the Senator for everything she has done partnering with us. My colleagues right here, Senator Sumaran, Representative Joan Fernandez. It's great. It's, particularly, at the state level and with so many of us, we've lived our lives through Zoom and WebEx and Teams, things I didn't know existed. We've been on video more than the fish population that's on video all the time here. And it's so great to be here, as everyone mentioned. We're here in a public gathering, many of us without masks, and this is possible in large measure because of science and research. Or we wouldn't be here the way we are now without science and research. And that's what we're talking about here, science and research. It's a hallmark for these institutions, but it's also for our country. If you look at other countries, you'll think of Germany and technology. If you look at the US, it's research. And this is the preeminent area in that regard. I know from the subcommittee I chair on global environmental issues that these institutions here aren't just a national treasure, they're an international treasure. And they're known worldwide for the research they've done. When there's a crisis in the world and they need a response, they call on these people right here that we saw on the tour to be there to that crisis, whether it's recovery of aircraft, investigations, whether it's decorizing oil spills. The first calls come right here, and it's terrific. But even as we celebrate the fact that we're maskless and science and research are there, and we also know that we have much to do going forward from that. But the experts have told us, as bad as this pandemic was, the experts have told us time and time again, in spite of the devastation, the lives lost, the economy battered, not just in this country, worldwide, we faced a greater threat than this, all the while dealing with this. Climate change, the experts reinforce time and time again, is much more of an existential danger than what we were facing up close with the pandemic. And it's a wake-up call to all of us. We used to be briefed, the Senator knows this, on the greatest threats existentially. They would be nuclear warfare, they would be climate change, and pandemics. And I always thought in that trio that, well, we wouldn't have to worry about pandemics that much, we'd be prepared for it. So it shows you, for those that didn't understand this before, the existential nature of dealing with climate change. And these institutions aren't immune to it. So the grant that we're here announcing today for the repair is a result of the effects of climate change right here in this institution. Particularly the 2018 storms that came up, and they're becoming more frequent, becoming more violent. And I know the region well because I live just a few miles from here, and they come up almost without warning sometimes. So that money is well appreciated and necessary just to start us in the process of fortifying the Iceland dock in particular. If we don't have that moving and repaired, we're not going to be able to continue our work in that regard. I must say, the work that's done here is essential in the same way that we fought the pandemic with frontline people there at the call. And people here are dealing with the climate change issue the same way. And they're dealing with it in so many different ways. As we learned in our tour today, going around, the different approaches that are there and the different threats that it imposes. There's no coincidence that the Secretary of Commerce is here today, because just within 20 years from now, by 2040, it's forecast that the sea level here is going to compromise the whole facility and the whole region if we don't act on it. So today is, a really examination of what we've done here and where we are, but there has to be so much more, because there's so much more at stake. With our environment right now, climate change is an existential threat. We need this research here to continue and to grow, to deal with it. We also know there's security issues. I know from the Armed Services Committee I'm a member of, the connection here with the Navy in particular and Armed Services. It's critical for our security needs. We are falling so far behind in the Arctic and behind Russia, behind China in that regard. And we have to be expanding our services here and our research here to go forward to help keep our country secure in that respect. Environmentally, with the offshore wind, not the first, but the first major offshore wind development in the country, forecast between New Bedford and Martha's Vineyard. We're going to need that research to continue, to grow. And in terms of the economy, what's being done here is essential. We have growth industries like aquaculture, we have offshore wind. We're at the hub of dealing with the economic issues that are so vitally addressed through climate change and research. So we have to go forward with that to be effective. We have to understand that we have to keep the ships like the Armstrong that's out there, the Atlantis in there doing that research. And we have to make sure economically, whether it's aquaculture, whether it's offshore wind and resilience, that we have the kind of research and development. And fortunately, we have the hub in this portion of the Massachusetts and Rhode Island, all in place to do it. Not just these economic projects going forward, but the academic background is there. URI, Madam Secretary, which you're well familiar with, SMAS, University of Massachusetts, the best engineering school in Mass Maritime, the community college, with Cape Cod Community College and Bristol Community College, doing education and training going forward. All these things are in place, as well as the physical areas that are so important to that research that we earn through part of our tour today. So today isn't a victory lap. We're just talking about getting the grant and remembering the very important words today of our secretary, that there will be more to come. I wrote those. and we have to do that. We have to do it not just for this community, not only for the Commonwealth, not only our region, we have to do it for our country, and we have to do it globally. So I want to thank you for all the work we saw you, that you've been undertaking here today. It's a great refresher of how important the work is for our country and our existential needs. And I just want to say that you've got a team here today, administration and congressional members, that are going to work hard to make sure we're going forward, to make sure that the next step is fortifying that infrastructure and the expansion of that infrastructure that everyone knows full well how important that is, and we're planning that now. We're asking for support on those things now, both from the Commonwealth and the federal government. And so we will have you back, and we'll be talking about those issues, Madam Secretary, and I'll be joined with people like Senator Markey, Senator Warren, our congressional delegation, as well as our leaders here in the Commonwealth. It's so important, their role as well going forward. It's a springboard forward, not the finish line. Our work is ahead of us, and these Woods Hole Institutes will be at the vanguard of that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And again, what a great team that saw the wonders of the ocean and the warnings coming from the ocean. That it is received and delivering to us about the impact of climate change. And we have just a great team that Joe Biden has put together, led by the Secretary, in order to respond. So are there any questions? Do they have? Yes?
Do you have any comment on the cyber attack at the Steamship Authority, or any updates on what's going on right now?
Obviously, the Russians, the Chinese, the North Koreans and others are going to be engaged in ongoing cyber attacks at the United States. There's no question about it. We have to ensure that we harden our capacity to respond to it. Back in 2007, when I was the chairman of the Energy Committee over in the House, I actually passed a piece of legislation. It mandated that the utilities of the United States harden their ability to respond to attacks from overseas. There were great threats from Russia in 2007. That bill passed the United States House of Representatives, but the utilities killed it in the United States Senate. They killed it 15 years ago. This is not new. This is just something that unfortunately has not been dealt with in a way that represents the magnitude of the threat to us and to our economy, to our security. So from my perspective, what we're seeing here at the Steamship Authority, what we're seeing with the meat industry, what we're seeing with Colonial Pipeline and our energy sector, it all is saying to us very clearly, especially in those sectors that are most central to our larger economic growth, is that those measures are going to have to be mandatory. This is not going away. These attacks are going to continue. And if we don't put strong mandatory measures in place, then we are going to see a recurrence and an escalation of the impact upon us as a nation. Question, yes?
Senator, the Steamship Authority is a ballot box transportation system, so it doesn't get state funding like Washington State Ferries or the Maine State Ferry system. What can Congress do to help it harden itself, because it doesn't have the money to do it?
I agree with you. For softer targets, that is more like the Steamship Authority, we're going to have increasing funding from the federal level, research and development from the federal level, in order to help every aspect of our economy. And the Steamship Authority is a perfect example of what is happening. No one would have ever imagined that the Russians would attack the Steamship Authority. I was over last night talking to people on the dock, and what they were saying to me is that they were actually checking each of the vehicles manually because they had lost their electronic capacity to do it. That is something that was otherwise unimaginable, but the Russians targeted that system. And so as a result, we are going to need to have a comprehensive capacity to respond to the cyber attacks, which are going to come, they're going to escalate, but there is a technology that can be developed in order to respond to it. This is a matter of ensuring that we anticipate, fund, and then deploy these technologies, and where necessary, on a mandatory basis, because otherwise the disruptions would be catastrophic for our society. Questions?
I guess I have the same question for Secretary Raimondo from the Biden administration's cabinet's perspective. Any updates, any comment on that?
No, not particularly. I agree with what Senator Markey said, and it's also unrelated to what you're talking about, but very relevant. If you look at Colonial Pipeline and the increase of the tax, I mean, the senator's right. We should assume that there will be more in number and more severe. And so it's a call to action for the private sector, particularly smaller companies, to realize that they also need to make the investments necessary in order to harden their systems. And we're gonna be doing a lot more outreach, working with companies, particularly smaller ones, to help them figure out how to do that.
Questions?
Sorry, go ahead.
Yes?
Secretary Secretary Raimondo, just what is it like to be back here in New England? I heard you mention Rhode Island a few times today. What is it like to be back here?
It's fantastic to be back here. I always love to be in New England. I love the salt air and being on the coast. It's where I'm from. It's also very special for me to be here because for me it's full circle. You know, having been so involved with URI and the School of Oceanography at URI, to now be the head of NOAA and to have NOAA reporting up to me, and it all comes together right here. So it's fantastic. I would say I have seen, being the governor and working with NOAA, working with the University of Rhode Island School of Oceanography, and working with industry, I see the power of these collaborations, not just for climate change, but for the economy. I mean, I had said when I was the governor that Newport, Woods Hole, URI, Quonset, kind of the Silicon Valley of undersea research. We have the Navy, we have Woods Hole, we have Raytheon, we have so many companies, so many jobs, so much innovation. And so I'm excited to, you know, be able to play an even bigger role and a bigger stage around these issues.
Thank you.
And Madam Secretary, I have a question too. Will NOAA provide more employees to help with the workload of permitting 14 wind farms that now have uses entering into the permitting process?
It's a great question. It's something that we have to take a hard look at, and I would say probably, and it's something that as the workload increases, we certainly have to make sure that we have the staff in order to be able to do the work. As I mentioned, President Biden's proposed budget for this year includes significant increases for resources to NOAA, and I'm extremely supportive of that. I also have a lot of experience, having been the governor that oversaw the nation's first offshore wind farm. I know this business intimately, and I will do everything I can to make sure NOAA has the resources necessary. The permitting process is vital, and it does take resources, and we're going to make sure we get it right.
Can you speak to whether there's any truth that underwriters may prevent certain vessels from passing inside certain wind farms, restrict their insurance?
I have to get back to you on that. I cannot speak to that, but if you, that's my press secretary, and if you give her your contact info, I'll get back to you.
And is NOAA doing enough to help in the North Atlantic right whales? Critics, of course, are saying that NOAA is not abiding by the laws laid out in the Endangered Species Act and the Marine Mammal Protection Act.
So this is a tricky issue, it's a sensitive issue, and it's important that we respect all sides. I would say NOAA is doing a very good job navigating through the challenges. There are commercial interests of fishermen and lobster fishermen, as well as environmental and conservation interests with the whales. And I would say yes, we are doing the best that we can under difficult circumstances and a complex topic. And we heard about that today, actually.
And that's all the time we have for
Okay,
today.
great. Thank you all so much for coming. Great day.